What is up, YouTube? This is Dual Crazy coming at you with my Blue Eyes White Dragon deck for the September 2016 ban list. This is a deck that was just about done before the new ban list dropped. Uh, didn't get hit at all. I mean, it won the Worlds, so I guess they're going to let it go for right now. But this is the deck list that I have for the moment. I am still tweaking it a little bit here and there between matches. It is a very strong deck. It's ridiculously strong, especially when you can get out your first turn Blue Eyes Spirits and your Azure Eyes combos. Um, it just freaking powerhouses through a lot of the lesser decks. Some of the other meta decks, can be kind of temperamental if you don't counter them right. But on that note, here's my deck. So, first of all, you're going to play your three main reasons for even having this deck, which is the three alternative Blue Eyes. This is hands down one of the easiest cards to summon, provided it doesn't get Solemn Strike, which I've had that happen at least a couple of times. But as soon as you get this thing on the board, you basically just set it up, use its effect to pop one, get your tuner out, and just go straight into your Blue Eyes Spirit. And then you can make your plays later. There's some pretty good combos to bring him back. And then after that, you've got your three big daddies. Your Blue Eyes White Dragons, the original OG dragon from the original show. This card is stupid amazing to have in your hand, especially with the alternative dragon sitting in back row. With alternative, you just reveal it, bring out your Blue Eyes alternative, and then you can basically ditch this for your trade-ins and use your Return of the Dragon Lords for your Monster Reborn effects. Next up, I play two of the Dragon Spirits of White. This card's pretty sweet. You can ditch it for your trade-ins. You can call it back and banish a back row card. You can use it against your pendulum opponents. Just basically banish their freaking scales. Good to go into synchro play for Blue Eyes Spirit or just anything that you could. I've even you could probably even use him because he's the same rank as your Blue Eyes. You can use him for combos like Tyrant, Red Dragon Archie, which I've made on more than one occasion, which if you can get that thing on the board, it's just incredibly hard to get over, as long as if they can't pop it somehow. Next up is your staples for the deck, your three sages with Eyes of Blue. This card, hands down, is one of the primo cards. It's a level 1 light tuner that basically lets you add another tuner to your hand. You can use this to search out your Master of Eyes of White. You can use it for your effect failures. A lot of times I find myself actually using it because of the way that I have my deck built to basically pull out my maidens and to make my combo plays for either my Blue Eyes Spirit or my Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend if I want to go that route. Next up, you have your three dragons of the legend. You basically ditch these. You can use them to make your synchro plays, but most cases you're going to just ditch them to special summon your Blue Eyes White Dragon at the end of your turn, or you're going to banish it to bring back a Blue Eyes card. The really sweet thing with this card is that if you've already summoned your Blue Eyes White Dragon, your alternative version, to the field and used him for your synchro plays, you can basically ditch this card to basically add it back to your hand and just go for the replay and just piss your opponent off. Next up, I play two of the maidens with Eyes of Blue. I I know some people don't really like to play this card, but I like the combo play that Team Samurai had, where you basically put this on the board with your Mausoleum, and you basically combo play off of that to get your Blue Eyes White Dragons out on the field and go directly into your Blue Eyes Spirit cards, or and also again your Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend if you've played your Sage with the combo effect. Next up, I do have a couple of hand traps. I played 2 copies of the Maxi. Honestly, even before the ban list, when they knocked it down to 2, I wasn't even playing 3 at the time because 3 to me just seems like it might be a little bit too much. And there are times when this card can actually kind of backfire and you ditch it and your opponent either doesn't have anything they can play or they just don't play anything that gives you that +1 off of it. Next up are my 1-ups. So I play the 1 effect Veiler because it's searchable off of your Sage. I do actually play the Master, which is also good for some of the returns, and you can shuffle him into your graveyard with an effect monster on the field. And your 1 White Stone of Legends, which is awesome because you can ditch it with your Dragon Shrine, or even as a ditch card for your Melody or anything else you might take into play that requires a discard, because it basically automatically grants you a Blue Eyes White Dragon, and especially if you have an alternative in hand already, it's like basically giving you a free special summon for the turn. Now onto the spell cards. I play 3 of the Melodies of White Dragon, 3 of the Melodies of Awakening Dragon. This card is freaking amazing for those first turn Blue Eyes alternatives. If you don't draw into a Blue Eyes and an alternative in the opening hand, this card in your hand can single-handedly just bring that out. It's just, I mean, and especially when you can combo that with your White Stone or your Stone of Legend to basically add even more Blue Eyes either to your hand or to your grave, it's just that much better. Next up is one of the most OP cards in the deck because you can basically use it to special summon a dragon from your graveyard, and then it basically becomes your 6th trap card in the graveyard because you can basically use it and banish it in order to protect your Blue Eye Spirit or what have you from being destroyed. It is just ridiculously fun to play when you pull it out, especially if occasionally you'll get more than one, in which case, especially if you've ditched a Blue Eyes Spirit or anything else, you can bring it back and you can basically go into just more shenanigans. And like I said, I do play the field spell build, which is 2 Mausoleums and a Terraforming to search. This card is so much fun to play because what can I say? You basically play that, and if you have Sage in hand, you basically get to bring out either your Blue Eyes Spirit or go into Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend just by bringing out Sage, searching your Maidens, using your extra normal summon on Maiden, using the effect of Mausoleum on Maiden to special summon a Blue Eyes, and then you just pop off from there. Next, I play 2 Twin Twisters. I mean, you really don't have to say much about that other than, back row or even for the pendulum matches. As long as you're not going against something that's playing Sky Iris, you can basically just use this card right here to pop your opponent's scales and just set them up for, delay them for a turn or even slow them down or maybe even kill them off with it if they can't come back from it next turn. And then I know a lot of people play 3 of these. I have one-sided. Honestly, I don't really, to me it just seems like if you play 3 and you just ditch too many of your cards, sometimes you can get locked out of your own dragons if you're playing against a deck that counters it, especially if you're going up against BA and they're playing Darklaw. That card is just annoying as hell to get around if you don't have a way to get it off the board. But it's still not a bad draw card. It's awesome. Just ditch it. You ditch your Blue Eyes, send it to the grave, draw 2 cards, and then especially if you draw into your returns or your awakenings or your white stones or anything that can basically help you add that back to your hand is just clutch. And then my 2 1-ofs for my spells is I do play Soul Charge. I haven't actually had this come in handy yet. I've played it once just to basically bring back like a Blue Eyes or an alternative. It wasn't anything too like awe-inspiring or ground-changing in terms of putting me back on the board or putting me even further ahead. Because I've either been able to go through my opponent without it, or it's basically just been like I bring it back and I basically just use it to go off on a Blue Eye Spirit or something. And then the 1 Dragon Shrine. I'm thinking about maybe bumping this up to 2, but honestly, right now 1 seems like it's enough. Because I basically just use it to ditch my Blue Eyes and then ditch my White Stone of Legend or my White Stone of the Ancients to get off my Blue Eyes White Dragons plays, and then just go off from there. And then I do play a few traps. I actually just teched these in like a week ago. Unfortunately haven't really been able to actually make use of them because they've been popped by like MST or whatever. But these are really good if you're going up against, say, a deck like BA where they're going to play a lot of Dantes, a Beatrice, uh, Heliopolis, or anything that can basically freaking clear your board or just screw you over. You can basically use this to kill their own monster as soon as they try to activate that monster's effect, and just basically say nope. And then lastly, I do play the Vanities and the Solemn Warning. I would probably switch out the trap holes for Solemn Strikes if I could actually pull them. But those things are apparently going to just evade me for the rest of my life because I can't pull them to save my life. But Solemn Warning is one of those cards where even though it costs you 2,000 life points to play it, if you're going to get one-upped by somebody who's playing a big monster like a Chaos Max or anything like that, you can basically just, I mean, it's worth it to pay the 2,000 just to say no to a monster that's gonna freaking KO you or put you in a crippled position. And the Vanity's Emptiness is actually really good. If you can go through and establish your board ahead of time, you bring out your Blue Eyes alternative, you go into your synchro plays, and you just bring out your Spirit. You can have this on your field, set it, activate it on your opponent's draw phase, and just basically say no, you don't get to special summon. Especially since a lot of decks, in my opinion, this meta are going to basically be all about special summoning, Cosmos, BAs, even in the mirror match, you can basically set this up, and your opponent either has to pop it somehow if they have a card to do so, or they're going to have to just sit there and just take it. So it's a really good card to have. Now on to my extra deck. I am playing 2 of the Blue Eyes Spirits. These things are freaking amazing, especially if you happen to go against Pendulums, because obviously, this card shits on Pendulums because they can't special summon more than 1 at a turn. So if they can only special summon 1, most cases they're going to have to either go with one of their biggest, or they're going to have to just play it a defense. And the not to mention the other bonus of that is the Graveyard Negation, which is freaking awesome. The other one I do play is I do play 2 of the Azure Eyes. I have actually, I've realized that this is actually, some people play it at 1. I like playing it at 2 because honestly, I can use its effect, bring out 1 next turn if I have to, if I'm gonna come up against something, if I can't get over something, or even just as a backup plan if I have 1 Blue Eyes. If this one's on my field already and I have a Blue Eyes Spirit on my field as well, and it's gonna get canned, and my first Azure's effect is on over, you can basically pop it for another one and basically give yourself a turn to get back. Plus the special summon off of normal Dragon in your grave is not half bad either. Like I said, I do play the one Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. This card has actually won me a couple of matches, just simply because when you make this card, um, you can either use its first effect, which is basically to clear the board of everything except for himself, in which case you're going to hit him for 3,500, which is a pretty decent chunk of life points in one turn, or you're going to use the other effect, which I have only done about once, um, to basically pop a card on the field. I would honestly probably save the second effect for like a problematic card like anti-spell fragrance or something like that that's going to be crippling, and then you get the 500 like attack point gain, which is pretty sweet because it makes it a 4K beater. I do use the one Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. This card I've only really played as a defensive mechanism. In return for Blue Eyes Spirit, if my opponent is going to basically do something to kill my Blue Eyes Spirit, or they're going to try to Regeki it, and I can get this out. Oh, not Regeki, because I keep forgetting Regeki actually goes off of the entire field. But I use this card to make combo plays, usually a lot of times just defensive, because I'll bring this out in defense mode, and I'll pop their Dantes or Beatrices or something like that back to their hand, and then they have to basically either be able to resummon two or more monsters to bring those cards out, or they're going to just have to say, fuck, I'm done for the turn. One of the cards I have in my extra deck that I don't actually use, and I'm probably going to switch it out as soon as I can find like a better card that works, is the Clearwing. I don't really have anything to play with it. It's just, one of those cards that fits in my extra deck for the time being until I get something. I am also working with a little bit of the Photon deck. I just finally got this Galaxy Eye Cypher Dragon. I had some before, and I basically cleared them out like an idiot. But this card can be pretty sweet. I do have the Galaxy Prime and the Galaxy Full Armor. I've made a Galaxy Full Armor at least a few times since I've had it. It is a pretty sweet card if you can make the combo work for you. And then my last cards will be my Twin Burst Dragon. Right now I've got this at 2, but once I can find something that better suits for the plays, like a Michael or something like that, or an Acer, I'll probably swap out one of these for that. Lastly, I do have one Neo Blue Eyes in here. I haven't made him yet, but again, he's just kind of one of those filler cards. But I mean, in the off chance I get all 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons on the field and I decide to make him as kind of an emergency play, he has a 45K or a 4,500 beater. So, I mean, that's nothing to scoff at. And then my side deck, I'm running the one Thunder King. I know that it's up at 2 now, but honestly, I don't really use him as much just because a lot of people have stuff that already draws into him, especially if we're going against a mirror match and they're using trade-ins or cards of consonants. So basically his effect only works if your opponent's got to search stuff. I do cite a second effect failure. Mostly just because maybe I decided to swap out my master for some reason for a second availer. Even though you really don't need to with Master's Effect to basically shuffle back. But I mean, you never know when it can come in handy. This is one I just decided to throw in there. Priestess with the Eyes of Blue. This one is basically if you're going against somebody who has, say, like an anti-spell fragrance up, and you really want to try to get your alternative on the field without having to go and wait a turn. If this is in your hand and you can't use your melodies and your whatever without having to set them, this is a pretty decent staple as backup. Not one of those cards I would main deck, but again, it's a decent side deck. I do side deck a couple of Flying Seas for those XD heavy decks like BAs, because when you're playing BAs, they're going to go into those Dante plays. They're going to try to go Beatrice. They're going to go full armor, whatever they have in their arsenal for XD summons. This card basically says shits on them. I am playing One Book of Moon. I haven't actually sided it in yet, but it's one of those cards that just seems like, maybe if you're having trouble with a deck and there's a specific card that they have that screws you over or goes over one of your monsters, and you can side this in and get it off. It's one of those cards. It's not bad to have. I do side one other Dragon Shrine and my third trade-in. Again, these would probably be situational. Most of the time, I don't even draw into my second trade-in. This is just kind of like maybe if I'm having draw issues or something, maybe I side it in for a second match just to try to give myself some extra charge going in. And the second Dragon Shrine, I haven't cited that in either because most times I just play the one shrine, and I'm good. The 1-for-1, which I haven't used either. This is kind of one of those cards I just decided to side deck because it's not bad. I mean, special summon off of a level 1 ditch. And then one of the other cards that I actually decided to tech in for side deck are 3 of the premature returns. This is mostly just for stuff like if you get Dark on the field and he banishes like your Blue-Eye Spirit or something. You can basically use this, or your alternatives, or your Blue Eyes White Dragons. Basically just use this as a side deck card for the second match if you know your opponent's going to go for that play anyways. It's not bad to bring back cards. So I had these main decked in one of my other videos. But honestly, this is actually not a bad card to have if you can get it off, because since it doesn't destroy it, it just returns monsters. Some of the cards that have effects that basically say they can't be destroyed by card effects, you can use this against, especially for stuff like your XD summons or anything. They basically bring it out. You wait for the combo plays, they bring out, say, a Beatrice or a Dante, and you have nothing there. You can use this as kind of like a negate attack in a sense to basically pop it back onto their hand, or in there's extra deck however it happens, and you get a little bit of reprieve. My last one for my side deck is the Torrential Tribute. I think this is a pretty staple card for a lot of decks because especially if you're going up against a Pendulum deck, where and if maybe you want that little bit of extra oomph just to make sure that your opponent doesn't get off their Pendulum summons. I mean, because Pendulums are really annoying in the fact that they can basically bring out their 18, their 2K, 2500 attackers, especially Metaphos. Metaphos are actually becoming a really strong card, and Torrential Tribute can just shit on any deck that mass summons. But that's my deck profile for now. This is Crazy Duelist signing out.